Thank you, Whitney. Great job. You have your hands full. That is so awesome. Recess. I love recess. You know, kids will give you an honest answer if you ask an honest question, right? If I ever ask you what's your favorite part of the service, and you say the ending, then we're going to have an issue. We're going to have some issues. Hey, do you ever ask yourself the what if questions? Like, what if I were to win the lottery? Right? What if I live to be 100? What if my company closes down and I lose my job? What if? What if? What if? Life has a lot of what ifs. And the key is, when you ask those what ifs, where is your confidence? Who is part of those what ifs with you? And for the world, it's virtually no one. For us, it's Christ. He's the answer to our what if. And what if there were a way for you to overcome your fears and your frets and your frustrations? What if you could just put those away? And what if you could overcome anxiety, depression, loneliness, hopelessness, emptiness, boredom, despair, doubt, anger, addictions, all these things? Somebody somewhere is struggling with one of these issues. But what if there was an assurance we could once and for all replace those with what God wants us to receive, which is courage, confidence, peace, joy, hope, faith, and freedom. This is the last part of this series on influence and relationships, and we began last week talking about how the most important relationship of all is a dynamic relationship with God. And we talked about someone who was on a long, hard journey, a young boy who was the least likely to succeed, a shepherd, the one who, when you put him all in a lineup with his brothers, they were all taller, stronger, and better looking than him. And he was undervalued and overlooked. And yet, this young man, God had a divine destiny for him to rule a nation. But his journey was long and his journey was hard. And we talked about, of course, David. And we brought up the stories of 1 Samuel 20 to 22, where David discovered that King Saul wanted him dead and was not going to rest till he killed him. And King Saul's son Jonathan was best friends with David and said, David, you'd better run, you'd better go, you better hide, because my dad's after you and he wants you dead. And so David, in utter fear, is running. But he's not the man he's going to be. His journey is long. But God is going to take that journey to make him a great leader one day. But when he runs in fear, the what-ifs get to David, and he makes some very bad, poor choices. He first runs to the city of Nob, to the high priests, where the priests of Israel are. Ahimelech's the high priest. He lies to the high priest and says, the king sent me here. I'm on a secret mission for the king. And then Ahimelech gives him bread for him and his followers. Gives him the sword of Goliath, which was kept there from when he killed Goliath. And David left there on the pretense of a lie. And because of that lie, Saul found out, went in, and destroyed the priest, 85 priests. Ahimelech, his whole family, 85 priests, except for one son that escaped. There was destruction in that city because David, who was at the beginning of his journey, lied. And a great disaster happened. Then he made another poor choice. He used that old adage, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And he ran into the Philistine camp to Ashish the king, to Gath. And Gath was the hometown of Goliath, whom David had killed, the favorite warrior of that area. Their hometown boy was killed by David in a battle. David goes into that city carrying the sword of the man that he killed. And of course, they close the gates behind him, and David goes, and they recognize this is David. And he's like, I've made a big mistake. So what does he do? He humiliates himself in front of everyone, acts like a crazy person. He begins to foam at the mouth. He begins to let spit come down his beard. He scratches at the gate until the king goes, that guy's a nutcase. Get him out of here. And David escapes. And he goes to a cave with the couple of followers that he has left, who themselves are outcasts, unwanted people, outlaws. And in that cave, he writes Psalm 34. And a psalm is a way of expressing to God your joys and your fears and your pains in a musical form. It is meant to be sung, a cry to God in poem and song, so that one day when God delivers you, you remember the song and you can sing it as a remembrance of God's deliverance. The Psalms are beautiful, and I had mentioned last week we should all be writing our own Psalms of the desperation, the points of pain, and we give them to God and we sing them to God, so when God delivers us, we have something to remember Him by, to give us strength the next time we find ourselves in a dark cave. Let me read you the first 10 verses we discussed last week to get us caught up to today. Psalm 34, starting in verse 1. I will extol the Lord at all times. His praise will always be on my lips. I will glory in the Lord. Let the afflicted hear and rejoice. Glorify the Lord with me. Let us exalt His name together. I sought the Lord, and He answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Those who look to Him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. This poor man called, and the Lord heard him and saved him out of all his troubles. The angels of the Lord encamped around those who fear Him, and He delivers them. Taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the one who takes refuge in Him. Fear the Lord, you His holy people, for those who fear Him lack nothing. The lions may grow weak and hungry, but those who seek the Lord lack no good thing. And we discovered last week 3 simple points about what that meant. That indeed we are called to praise God in all things, to give Him glory, and that God desires to deliver us, and we're supposed to share these experiences with others. That in essence, when we say that word that so many are afraid of, evangelism is nothing more than sharing your experience with God to others so they might find the hope that you have. A psalm is a way of doing that, and David was singing this in this cave, afraid, having made poor decisions, and trying to connect again to a loving God. And so we continue on in verse 11 today of this song that David sings to the Lord. Come, my children, listen to me. I will teach you the fear of the Lord. Whoever of you loves life and desires to see many good days, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from telling lies. Turn from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. He's explaining the first lesson of this is that we are to teach biblical disciplines to others. It is imperative we teach these biblical disciplines to others and use ourselves as the example. That's the hard part. Because what he's saying are all the things he did wrong. Listen, he says, listen. You know, we have the misconception that prayer is talking at God. Part of prayer is talking with God. Most of prayer is listening to God. You ever been with a person who they complain a lot about something, and one time when they're complaining that you have an answer to fix that problem, you know how to fix it because you're experienced in that area, and they're talking, and you can't get them to stop talking long enough to tell them what the answer is? They're too busy complaining. Sometimes we do this with God. We go before God and go, hey, God, here's my list of items. Here's your to-do list. God, I need you to answer these 14 questions right here. Here's your list, Lord. And our prayers are giving God our to-do list. Instead of presenting our petitions before the Lord and listening to what his answer is. Because his answer may be totally different than what we're expecting. And when we give God our pre-written prayer answers, here's my questions. And by the way, God, just to help you, here's the answers I want. And you know we do that. We do it all the time. God, here's the questions. Now, I know the answer is you want me to have this and that and this and that, but I just want to help you out a little bit so that way we can speed this thing up because I got other stuff to do. Prayer is mostly listening. Communicating takes listening because if you're just talking, it's a monologue. And so David realizes he got himself in this mess because he lied, he cheated, and he deceived people, and he was trying to fix it on his own and only made matters worse. That's what happens when we take the place of God. And so David's singing with these people in the cave, trying to teach them the lessons he's learned, which takes this ugly word that we hate, especially as men, transparency. Ugh. Transparency, letting people see inside of you, being vulnerable. Now, you gals are generally better at it than we are as men. You know, when you get men together, they're, always bragging about this or this scar or that scar or this play or that play or whatever. We tend to be a little more shallow than the women. And so what he's saying is there's a transparency. I'm going to tell you the things I did wrong, and we're going to learn this together. Because David is on a journey, a divine destiny to lead a nation. And to lead a nation, God has got to do a heavy, deep work in him. And this is one of the works he has to be done. And I just want to encourage you right now, if you feel like you're in one of those caves and you feel like everything's going wrong, perhaps for you as a child of God, your divine destiny is so incredible that God's got to do a mighty work in you to get you there. It is not you're being abandoned. It is not that life is God's left you just to be in a cave and alone and dark and lonely. He's teaching you something powerful so he can bring you to that place that he wants you to be, like David, who's afraid with a couple stragglers left in a cave. And then he says to fear the Lord. Listen to me, teach you to fear the Lord. Fear the Lord does not mean that you are afraid to be in God's presence. It doesn't mean you're afraid God's going to smite you or smote you. I don't even know. Was it smite or smote? Is it smite? He's going to kill you. You're afraid he's going to kill you. Fear is not that. Fear is this. Fear is understanding God knows better than you. And if I can choose my way and God's way, and my way looks better, smells better, and seems better, I'm still going to choose God's way because it is better. I'll never forget my beautiful redhead and I, years ago, we had this house we really wanted. It was a gorgeous house, and we thought, this is it. And we met with a lady, and it turned out she was a Christian. It was so beautiful. We held hands in the living room. We prayed together. Oh, God is upon us. We're getting this house. And she was so happy, tears, joy. Well, anyway, we walk away thinking the deal's done. The bank denies our loan. I'm in big trouble. And they will not change their mind. So we had to go back to the lady and say, hey, listen, the bank won't give us the money. Well, it wasn't all fun and roses anymore after that. She threatened to sue us. She threatened to do this. Right? It was ugly. And we went away in absolute shadows like, God, you didn't do what we asked you to do. You left us, this beautiful home. God, we cried and we whined and we complained. You know what that's like. Until years later, they put a major thoroughfare right in front of that house. I would have had the worst house with no value ever. And it was years later, I finally was so embarrassed. God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I whined for like 7 years. You were saving me from my own stupidity. And those of you who've seen my house, I got a much nicer house for a lot less money. It's wonderful. God protected me from myself because I fear the Lord. And even though I whined and complained, we whined and complained, God still took care of us. And those of you who are parents know when you discipline your child, when you tell them to brush their teeth for the 80 billionth time, and they suck the toothpaste off and pretend they did, but they didn't. You go back and they're complaining and they're wiggling, they're upset, they're crying. You know you don't want their teeth to fall out. You don't want to pay for all those cavities. You do the right thing even though they're complaining. That's the beauty of our God. Fearing the Lord is trying to protect yourself and doing what He says to do, even if you think your way is better. And David is discovering that in this cave, singing this song of his pain to the Lord. And then he says, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from telling lies. Proverbs 18:21 says, the tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Let me ask you a question. Think about your week. If you had to eat your words that you spoke this week, would they be sweet or bitter? Think about it. Because God, with His tongue, spoke the universe into existence. And He spoke you into existence. He created you. And you are made in the image of God, and your tongue, when you speak, speaks things into existence, good or bad. Victory or defeat are spoken by your tongue, life or death. And so David is learning from all the death of all these people that he lied with his tongue. And your lips from evil, lying lips. Proverbs 12:22 says, lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who are faithful are His delight. Someone asked me once, what's the difference between an abomination and a sin? And the difference is a sin is an act you commit against the Lord. An abomination is a lifestyle you live against the Lord. If you lie, you have created an act of sin. If you are a liar, it is an abomination. You are living a lifestyle as a liar. And so he's saying, don't be careful. These lips can make you an abomination to the Lord. A lifestyle that is dishonorable to God. David is learning in this cave the damage he did with his tongue and his lying lips. And there's even a greater challenge for us. I was thinking about, why do we lie? Think about don't say it out loud, but think about the last time you lied, okay? Maybe it was on your way here. Why? Yeah, there's one right there. Yeah, honey, I did the dishes. Yeah, honey, I paid that bill. Yeah, honey, I put the gas in your car. Whatever. Yeah. I won't say the other honey one I was going to say. But why do we lie? Think about why we lie. We lie to protect ourselves, right? We lie to get out of trouble. We lie not to get into trouble. We lie to get someone else in trouble. It's all about us. It's an act of pride. Lie. When we lie, and I'll tell you, and what's worse about a lie is a spoken declaration of our lack of faith that God can deliver us. Let me say that again. A lie is a spoken declaration of our lack of faith that God can deliver us. Because we're thinking, this thing I did was so stupid that the only way to protect myself, the only way to get out of this, the only way to fix this is not to depend on God to fix it. I need to depend on me because I have a lack of faith that God can take care of this. So really, lying, the act of using the gift of speech, you are speaking into existence your lack of faith that God can deliver you. And the only way out is your brilliant mind and your tall tale or your little white lie or whatever you want to call it. And David's learning what we need to learn. Listen, God's going to put that man at the top of a nation that believes there's one true God. And he has to root out of that man all of that idea of lying, of pride, of protecting himself. He has to put inside that man the ability to depend wholly upon the living God to deliver him. Do we do the same? Do we do the same? Let's be careful that our declarations that we speak glorify God, and we do not speak out of our own fear and our own pride and our own lack of faith. The next one we learn is that God watches over his children at all times. I love this. In verse 15 of Psalm 34, this is what David says, 15 and 16. The eyes of the Lord are on the righteous, and his ears are attentive to their cry. But the face of the Lord is against those who do evil, to blot out their name from heaven. The eyes of the Lord. Psalm 17:8 says, keep me as the apple of your eye. Hide me in the shadow of your wings. The eyes shows the paternal, fatherly side of God, the protector side of God. Like I've got my eye watching over you at all times to make sure you are safe. It's like a father saying, I'm going to watch over that child to make sure that child's safe. Anybody tries to hurt my child, I'm going to step in and protect that child. When they say in the Old Testament that you are the apple of God's eye, it's talking about the fatherhood, the masculine side of God, the protector side of God saying, I see you clearly, and I'll make sure you're safe. That's the apple of God's eye. But he also talks about the maternal, motherly part of God with the ears. He's listening with his ears. He's attentive to the cry. You as moms know. Your kids could be at a birthday party. Tons of screaming, yelling, right? Everything. Your kid gets hurt, your child gets hurt, you hear that cry. There could be tons of kids screaming, but when your baby, when your child gets hurt and cries, you know that cry instantly. That's your child. And you are there to take care of your child. That's the motherly, nurturing side of God. And so Psalms are important. What he's doing here is he's crying out to God. And God hears, as a loving mother would, his child that's in need. And he is listening and attentive to help David in this time, just as he would help you as you cry out to God. But I love when it says, but the face of the Lord is against those who do evil. Think of it like this. When people are wanting to fight, when they decide they're going to go at it and start throwing some punches, they face each other. They look at each other. They're ready for a battle. This is literally saying God is turning his wrath against those who would do evil to his children. He's facing them. He's squaring off. I will take you on right now. This is my child, and it's not like shoulder like this. I'm going to mess with you. It's like everything. He's ready for battle. His face of wrath is upon those who do evil. You are not messing with my kids. You don't want to be on that side of God. It says in Proverbs 10:7, the name of the righteous is used in blessings, but the name of the wicked will rot. God, it takes it seriously when people mess with his children. It continues in verse 17 of Psalm 34. The righteous cry out, and the Lord hears them. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit. The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. He protects all his bones. Not one of them will be broken. Evil will slay the wicked. The foes of the righteous will be condemned. The Lord will rescue his servants. No one who takes refuge in him will be condemned. What a profound statement. He's giving us this next life lesson that a humble and righteous heart triggers God's nurturing nature. This is the part that is so beautiful if we embrace it. When you are humble before the Lord, when you are trying to do the right thing before the Lord, you trigger something in him. It's that compassionate part of God. But when you are prideful before the Lord, it's just the opposite that happens. He humbles the proud. So if you are prideful before God, he will humble you. But if you are righteous and humble before God, he lifts you up. You trigger something in God. In this cave, the future king of Israel, having done some really bad things, and people lost their lives because of him, and most of his followers left him. He lied, he humiliated himself, made a fool of himself, but he was humble before God. He wanted to do the right thing, and he admitted it, not just to God, but to the people that were following him. And they respected his humility. And God, it triggered the compassionate heart of God. So when he cried out, it says the Lord hears him. He delivers them from all their troubles. The Lord is close to the brokenhearted, saves those who are crushed in spirit. What a beautiful statement. Crushed in spirit. The righteous person may have many troubles. Exclamation point, asterisk. You still may have many troubles. The righteous person may have many troubles. Did you get that part? I'm not going to make you repeat it because I don't like it either, but it's true. The righteous person may have many troubles, but the Lord delivers him from them all. I kind of wish God had a timeline in how long the deliverance would take, by the way, don't you? Wouldn't it be nice to know that next Tuesday at 3 p.m. this will be resolved? It's a little frustrating. He doesn't give us a timeline on his deliverance. He just tells us he will deliver us. And by the way, all of you who've been serving Christ for a while, you've had those moments of despair, and God has promised you deliverance, and you wondered. It took longer than your expectations on the to-do list you gave God. But he promises you, if you are humble before him and you try to do the right thing, righteousness is just simply trying to do the right thing. He will deliver you from all your troubles, protects you. And evil will slay the wicked. The foes of the righteous will be condemned. The Lord will rescue his servants. Maybe you need rescuing today. Maybe someone you love needs rescuing today. We have an entire community of people that don't yet know Jesus that need rescuing right now. And so, where do we go from here? Matthew. I love what Jesus said in Matthew 7 through 12. This is what he says. Hear me. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be open to you. For everyone who asks, receive. The one who seeks, finds. The one who knocks, the door will be opened. Which of you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a snake? If you then, though you are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father in heaven give good gifts to those who ask him? So in everything, do to others what you would have them do to you. For this sums up the law and the prophets. And here's the final, most important part of this. It's not all about you. It's never been all about you. God loves you. He made you. He created you. He cares for you, but it's not all about you. God is going to bless you, deliver you, protect you, so that you may share those blessings with others. You are the conduit. It doesn't end with you. His deliverance, when he hears you cry, is so that when he delivers you, others may benefit. David, when he cried out in a point of vulnerability and transparency with those few people who were following him, knew they could trust that leader. He's vulnerable. They could trust that leader. He's transparent. They could trust that leader because he's calling out to God. And suddenly, David's life was blessing those who are following him. It's not all about you. It's about how you take what God gives you and use that compassion to bless others. And so here's what I'm going to ask you to do as we move into the transition into the wonders phase of our service. What is God asking you to do for someone other than yourself? What blessing does he want you to offer to another? I'm going to give us just some quiet prayer and meditation time to listen to the Lord. He may give you one person, he may give you 15 people. Write down the people God puts in your heart, and we'll come together in a few more minutes, and we'll talk about how we bless what God tells you. So begin now to ask God who he wants you to touch, and we'll come back and we'll finish up.